Hello and welcome. This is In the News. I'm your host, Keith Lander, and there's a lot in the news, I can tell you that. So we're going to get started real quick here. But first, let me start with Tim Scott. You know, Congressman Tim Scott out of South Carolina. That's where he's at. And he was on the podium with Donald Trump, and Tim Scott being a black man, and I think he was about the first black man to become a senator for the Republican Party at one time, I think. But anyway, as a South Carolina representative, Tim Scott got on that stage, and Donald Trump was up there talking crazy. And Donald Trump said to Tim Scott, "Why did you leave Nikki Haley? Nikki Haley appointed you as a representative, and you must really, you don't hate her a lot, don't you?" And that doggone Tim Scott got up there and said, "No, I just love you." I was like, I'll be doggone. I was like, look at this man here. You know what I mean? In my mind, I call him something different. But I tell you what, the people like Tim Scott, I'm going to let Malcolm X tell you about people like Tim Scott.
Back during slavery, when black people like me talked to the slaves, they didn't kill him. They'd send some old house Negro along behind him to undo what he said. You have to read the history of slavery to understand this. There were two kinds of Negroes. There was that old house Negro and the field Negro. And the house Negro always looked out for his master. When the field Negroes got too much out of line, he held them back in check. He put them back on the plantation. The house Negro could afford to do that because he lived better than the field Negro. He ate better, he dressed better, and he lived in a better house. He lived right up next to his master in the attic or the basement. He ate the same food his master ate and wore his same clothes. And he could talk just like his master. Good diction. And he loved his master more than his master loved himself.
So there you go. That's Tim Scott. You know what I mean? Malcolm X said that some, I don't know, 40 years, 50 years ago, and it still rings true today. Folks like Tim Scott has prevented black folks from progressing to the fullest of our ability because they latch on and they want to be something that they'll never be, and that is white. Tim Scott, you will never be white. Them white folks ain't gonna never appoint you no vice president if that's what you're groveling for and kissing Donald Trump behind for, Tim Scott. Man, be a man, Tim Scott. Why are you selling your soul? You're selling your dignity. You're selling your family's legacy for a bum like Donald Trump. This Donald Trump will never get in the White House again. And if you fools think he is, then you definitely a fool. And I'm gonna tell you the truth here. You know, this ain't no corporate media show. This is the real deal here. We're gonna tell you the truth and nothing but, whether you like it or not. Donald Trump is a fool, he's a con man, and he's soon to be found guilty as a criminal. He was found guilty of rape of E. Jean Carroll. He was found guilty of harassing and slandering E. Jean Carroll, which he had to pay again. Right? He was found guilty of fraud of his businesses and doing businesses in New York. Donald Trump can't even run a popsicle stand in the state of New York. Now, if a man can't run a popsicle stand in the state of New York, why in the heck we want to put him in the White House? Huh? He's been fined $400 something million for fraud of his businesses in New York and found guilty. So why do you want to put this man in the White House? But I'll move on. Talking about Donald Trump, let's move on to this immunity junk he's talking about. This man says he wants full immunity, not just qualified immunity. This is what his attorneys are saying. But he seeks immunity from criminal conduct and not just civil violations.
So you can't have a president without immunity. You have to have, as a president, you have to be able to do your job. But if this didn't work out, if I wasn't given immunity, then other presidents, when we talked about today, President Obama with the drone strikes, which were very bad, they were mistakes, terrible mistakes. You really can't put a president in that position. So I think most people understand it, and we feel very confident that eventually, hopefully at this level, but eventually we win. A president has to have immunity.
So what his attorneys and Donald Trump is saying to the Supreme Court, we want you to rule that the President of the United States cannot be held liable or responsible for criminal conduct or violation of civil violations. You know what? The Supreme Court, I wish the Supreme Court would come out with a decision, come out tomorrow and say, yeah, the president does have that kind of immunity. And guess what? President Joe Biden, he can lock Donald Trump up in jail. He can get rid of the Supreme Court. He can lock the doggone Congress folks who were in violation of criminal acts. He can put them in jail. So go ahead, Supreme Court. Make your decision right now, and that'll give President Joe Biden all the power that he definitely needs. And guess what? Joe Biden wouldn't leave office because now you can't force him out. See, this argument is so stupid that a president can't be held accountable for anything. It's so stupid and laughable that the circuit court, the federal circuit court, got it right when they told Trump, you will be held, the president will be held accountable, and he can be prosecuted, and he can be criminal charged, and he can be found for civil liability. That is the right decision. The Supreme Court, I don't know what the heck they're doing, but Clarence Thomas and the rest of them fools up there, and Clarence Thomas' wife, Jenny Thomas, was involved in getting the January 6th folks wound up to go down there and try to kill the Congress folks. That was Clarence Thomas' wife. Clarence Thomas has been taking monies from this wealthy billionaire, going on trips and taking monies and then presiding over cases that come against with the billionaire who's paying them off. They're paying off these people, y'all. Come on, let's stop all this old trying to over-intellectualize this nonsense with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a crook and a con man, plain and simple. You know what I mean? And he will not, you can take my word, you can play this video again come November, Donald Trump will not get in the White House as president again. I can tell you that. You know what? And then his argument is that in doing the oral arguments, that one of his attorneys, this what one of the three-judge panels asked Donald Trump's attorney. He said whether the president should, hypothetically, be immune from prosecution of ordering a U.S. Navy commandos to assassinate his political rivals. He said, will that be okay? And Donald Trump's attorney said, unless the president has been impeached first, then the such violation would be invalid. Not unless he's been impeached first. How stupid is that? Where do Donald Trump get these attorneys? At the Dollar General? The Dollar Tree? I think that's where he's getting these attorneys at, because these guys are bums. I mean, I can represent, well, you can't represent a guy who's completely guilty. You know what I mean? You'll look foolish if you do that, So we're going to move on. Let's talk about this border. You know what I mean? Everybody's talking about the border. The border this, the border that. We got to close the border. We got to do it. Shut up. Look, when Donald Trump was president, Donald Trump didn't close the border. So what Donald Trump is saying, he need to close the border, and all these other people talking about close the border. Donald Trump didn't close the border. He came up with these old stupid policy to separate the children from the parents, and they don't know where the children went. We've seen that before, haven't we? Remember slavery? Separate the parents from the kids. That's what Donald Trump did to these migrants coming here, trying to make a better life for themselves. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump, he hired migrants to work in these restaurants and these hotels that he owns. So what the hell are he talking about? And all these people talking about these migrants, they're coming and taking our jobs. Well, somebody email me the fact that a migrant has taken the job that an American person didn't want. You can't name one of them. All you folks out there talking about they taking jobs, they doing this. You show me where you signed up to take a job in a slaughterhouse, or picking fruit and vegetables in the hot sun, or working whatever kind of job these migrants works in the kitchen doing dishwashing stuff and that kind of thing. You show me where you applied and the migrant applied and the migrant got the job over you. You show me that. You can't show me that. As a matter of fact, these people are paying taxes. These migrants coming over here trying to make a better life for themselves. But let me tell you about the border. The Republican Party, the only thing they can talk about is the border, because they haven't done anything to help anybody, right? So the bottom line is, under President Biden, the employment rate is 50-year low. Black employment rate is at a 30-year low. Some of these black folks, I'm going to say it again for the black folks, just black folks. You white folks, close your ears. The black unemployment rate under Joe Biden, black folks, is at a 30-year low, right? Now, you want to talk about inflation? Inflation at one time was at 9%, probably about a year ago. President Biden put in the Inflation Reduction Act. Inflation is down 3.1. It worked, folks, right? All these jobs, right? All these jobs being created. Over 4 million jobs or more, 12 million jobs being created. More jobs being created under President Biden than President Trump ever thought about creating. That's the facts, y'all. Y'all can disagree with me all you want, but these are the facts. Now, getting back to the border, I'm going to tell you what the Texas Representative Tony Nell said, all right? This is what he said. He said, Congress don't have to do anything to secure our southern borders to fix it. Joe Biden, you destroyed it. You can fix it through your executive orders. You know who tried to do an executive order to fix some of the issues down at the border? President Biden. You know who sued him? The Republican Party. So all this stuff, this Tony Nelson. And then he said, why would I help improve? Why would I help Joe Biden improve his dismal 33%? I guess that's some kind of poll when he can fix the border and secure it on his own. He tried that, folks, and the Republican Party blocked every ounce of it. And then, let's be clear. There was a proposed bill to help out and fix some of the issues at the border. And they had a Republican also help get that bill together. And guess what happened, folks? Republican Party turned it down. Yes, indeed. Republican Party, first they agreed to it, then they turned it down. You know what I mean? Now, why they turned it down? It's been reported that Donald Trump wanted to go out and campaign on the border, and he didn't want that border bill to become law because it would have took away his talking points about the border. So all these Republicans screaming and hollering about the border ain't got this, the border ain't got that. It was all in that piece of bill that they could have signed, and they had Republican James Lanford, who was a Republican who negotiated that bill. James Lanford said it was the best bill they ever got. Matter of fact, if you look at some of the news outlets, they say the Democrats gave up a whole lot to put that bill together. It was almost everything the Republicans wanted. It was 90% what the Republicans wanted. They was ready to sign it, and then that stupid Donald Trump called it and said, don't sign that bill, don't vote on it, because they don't have anything else to say, right? And let me say this about people. They talking about, these migrants, they come over here, they committing crimes. They point to one or two instances where a migrant was involved in a crime. One or two, or maybe three. Out of all the folks that come in here in this country, it must have been thousands and thousands of folks that come into this country legally, seeking asylum and go through the process. There is a process. They find one or two. That's it. Less than 0.1% of migrants creating crime. And then they're going to say, look at all these migrants creating these crimes. Where? Come on, y'all don't fall for that nonsense. They ain't got nothing else to talk about. That's why they want to talk about the border. And if you ever notice, when you see these politicians go down to the border, that's a political stunt. You know what I mean? I don't have to go to Hawaii to know it's hot. Huh? I don't have to go down there to know it's hot. I can say, well, it's hot down here in Hawaii. You know how I know? Because I just read the temperature. You don't have to go down to the border to figure out that there's issues at the border. And as a matter of fact, the borders union, the union that presides over the border, they wanted that package, that bill that was put together by Republicans and Democrats. They wanted that bill passed, and Republicans didn't pass it. Now, if the union wanted to pass and the border directors and administrators say we wanted that bill, you know it was effective. And Republicans knew it was going to be effective, and they knew they were going to take away that talking point for the Republicans and get up there and start blabbing off about how bad the union is. I mean, how bad the border is. All right? So, let me say this too about this border. One of the things that people were saying that, they're going to allow 5,000 unauthorized immigrants a day. No, that's wrong. And it's been wrong. Even James, hold on, let me get his name, Lanford. Even James Langford said it was wrong. There's nothing in there that say that they will allow 5,000 immigrants in this country a day. That's not in the bill. It never was in the bill, right? Matter of fact, it said if the encounters gets to 5,000 in a day, the border, that part of the border will be closed off, and no asylum seekers will be let in. They will be turned away and sent back to their country. That's what it says, folks. Y'all been hustled by these clowns who come on TV talking about the border so jacked up, and then when they get a bill or opportunity to do something about it, they turn their back on it because their orange god, Donald Trump, tell them not to do it. That's the only reason. So don't fall for this nonsense. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. I got one more story. This guy is named, let me get his name, Mark Robinson. If you haven't heard of Mark Robinson, you need to look this guy up. He's running for governor of North Carolina. And the reason why I bring him up, because he said some very disparaging remarks about Dr. Martin Luther King on his Facebook page back in, I think it was 2017 or 2018, according to the Huffington Post News. So let me tell you what this Mark Robinson said. He's a black dude too. He says MLK was an inferior pastor and a communist. That's what the top GOP candidate for North Carolina governor said about Dr. King. All right. Also, he said that, let me get this right. He said tomorrow, he talking about MLK Day when everybody get the day off. He said I will do my service to the community by going to work and continuing support for myself and my family. So I'm not a leech on the community. That's what he said in one of his posts in 2017. He also wrote that MLK Day, he said, is I don't like communists, no matter what color they are. So I guess he calling Martin Luther King a communist. He also said some disparaging remarks about John Lewis. And let me tell you this, I'm gonna read this verbatim because I want you to get the right feel. He says he said the fact that the Alabama police gassed and brutalized John Lewis and hundreds of others in the protest on Ed Pettis Bridge. Now it's known as Bloody Sunday. Y'all know about that, right? And this is what this guy said. He said, "Hey, John Lewis, just because you got beat up by some Democrats in 1965 doesn't mean you can't get criticized by some Republicans in 2017. Now, this is a black man criticizing a civil rights hero, a legend, a man who put his life on the line, John Lewis, for folks to get the right to vote down there in Alabama and Mississippi and all those places. And this Mark Robinson, who's benefited off the hard work that John Lewis put in, this Mark Robinson has benefited from it, and then he want to criticize John Lewis for the work he's done. See, this is another one, folks. That's what Malcolm X said. Man. You remember what Malcolm X said at the beginning of this video? Let me go on and say some more about this clown. He said that he don't care what John Lewis did in the 60s because the problem is what John Lewis is doing in the year 2017. Well, you know what John Lewis was doing in the year 2017? He was calling out the fact that Donald Trump was an illegitimate president because he had Russia help him win the election in 2016. Oh, he also said this in 2017, Mr. Mark Robinson. His name is Mark Keith Robinson, if you want to look him up. He said in May of 2017, he posted on his Facebook page, in the 1960s, the civil rights movement was crap and a communist effort. That's what the man said, y'all. And one more thing about this Mark Robinson, and I hope the folks down in North Carolina see this show. You know, if you know anybody, make sure they see the show about this Mark Robinson because he's running for governor. Where was it at? Donald Trump had said something about this fool. And I thought I can bring it up. But anyway, the fact that we have black folks out there trying to denigrate, trying to criticize, trying to belittle our African American legends, heroes, history makers, it's a shame. It's a shame. And this Mark Robinson should be shaming himself, right? He should be shamed, but you can't shame the devil. You know what I mean? You can't shame him. You can't shame the Tim Scotts. You can't shame the other little clowns up there who's backing Donald Trump and all this kind of nonsense. You know? Let me ask you something, America. Has America done away with the truth? Have America done away with the truth? You can answer that question. And I'm going to answer one more question for you. These people talking about, is America a racist country? Is America a racist country? I'm going to answer that question. I guarantee you there are some racist folks in America. There is some racist folks in America, because if it wasn't any racist folks in America, we would never have had a Civil Rights Act. We never would have had a Voting Rights Act. We never would have had Accommodations Act. We never would have had the fact that we had separate facilities for black and whites. That's racist. Those are racist Americans. So if you ask me, is America a racist country? I can tell you what, there is a whole bunch of large percentage of racists in this country. And matter of fact, you got one running for president. And that's Donald Trump. Right? I don't care what you say. You know what I mean? Why I say he's racist? I'm going to end it with this. He got sued for a housing complex against black folks. He didn't want them in there. He got sued in his casinos because he didn't want black dealers dealing cars to the white high rollers. He got sued for all that, folks. Sued. And he put out an ad during when those young men were accused of raping and beating a woman in Central Park, Central Park 5. Before the trial even began, he put out a full-page ad in the newspaper, said they was guilty and they deserved the death penalty. And when those young men was cleared of that offense and found that they was wrongfully accused, Donald Trump didn't even open his mouth. Huh? So come on, y'all. I'm gonna ask you one more time. Has America lost the will for truth? I'm going to let you answer that question, and I'll catch you next time around. May God bless you and your family.